Hello, future freedivers, and welcome to the Total Beginner Freediving podcast, brought to you by Octopus Freediving, which make the highest quality freediving accessories on the planet. You are listening to episode number 3 about why I thought the Netflix documentary, My Octopus Teacher, absolutely sucked.
20 years stuck in the office, and now he's traveling the world. Just one breath and diving deep, he's healthier and happier than ever. Freedive nomad, he's found what he wants to do. A freediving podcast for total beginners like you. Freedive nomad, the peace into the deep blue. Make the dream come true, you can do this too.
Hola, my name is Ray, aka the Freedive Nomad, and I am the host of this show. Now, My Octopus Teacher. Yeah, I know it won the Oscar for the best documentary. It was a great story. It was shot very well, and it's nice change to have a documentary about the ocean, which didn't make you feel super pessimistic or stop eating fish forever. And I understand why people loved it. My main issue was with the main character, Craig. He was an untrained freediver. There is one article that actually says he was a quote-unquote experienced freediver. And frankly, experience doesn't mean squat if you aren't doing it correctly. And his technique was not only awful, but it was also dangerous. Honestly, it was extremely irresponsible to show his dangerous technique on a huge platform like Netflix for people to emulate and potentially die. And I'm not joking. The way Craig was freediving could have cost him his life, and he's lucky it didn't. I intentionally put this episode after the previous episode about whether freediving is dangerous or not. And remember, the quick answer was it is very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, and relatively safe if you know what you're doing. And Craig here is a perfect example of someone who doesn't know what they are doing freediving. And the show gives us some very good example of technique he was doing incorrectly and gives me the opportunity to explain to you why it's dangerous. I identified 6 mistakes he's made in the documentary. Number 1, diving alone. This is the number 1 rule in freediving, and we learned that blackouts was the biggest risk in freediving in the last episode. And when you black out alone, you die. At the end of the documentary, it mentioned that Craig no longer dives alone, which is fantastic. Number 2, not wearing a wetsuit. Craig was diving in really cold conditions, 8 to 9 degrees Celsius or about 46 degrees Fahrenheit. And you consume more oxygen when you're cold to warm up your body, thus increasing risk of a blackout. Look, I'm all for cold immersion therapy. I do ice baths once or twice a week with other freedive instructors on the island, but there's a time and place for everything, and freezing your ass off while freediving is not one of them. Number 3, wearing too much weight. I don't even wear weights when I freedive without a wetsuit because wetsuits are very buoyant and weights are mostly for counteracting the wetsuit's buoyancy. It looks like he was wearing 5 kilos of weights, which is more than I wear with a 3 mil wetsuit. Why is this dangerous? Basically, you're making the hardest part of the dive during the ascent even harder. Why is this? Because the last part of the dive is when you are most hypoxic or low levels of oxygen, and also experience the largest drop in partial pressure of oxygen that we discussed in the last episode. Thus, by wearing those weights, you make the ascent much harder as you use more energy kicking, using up more oxygen and risking a blackout. If he were weighted properly, he just float up with 0 effort for at least the last several meters. Moreover, if he is diving with a buddy and he blacks out on the surface, he will not be buoyant at the surface. It's much more difficult to rescue and revive a blacked out diver if they don't float. Number 4, no duck diving. This is related to number 3, wearing too much weight. I'm assuming here he is overweighted to make his descent easier because he can't do a proper duck dive. He just sticks his head underwater and starts sinking. Now, what is a duck dive? It is an efficient movement to get you a few meters below the surface without exerting yourself too much, gaining momentum to continue deeper. This will get you about 2 to 3 meters below the surface with not much effort, even without wearing weights. Number 5, snorkel in the mouth while underwater. A diver with a snorkel in his mouth underwater serves no purpose. The human body is an amazingly elegant piece of work. It literally knows when you black out in water, and your body does something called a laryngospasm, where your vocal folds over, creating a seal to prevent water from flooding into your lungs, which will make saving a diver exponentially more difficult if that were to happen. But that's only if your mouth is shut and not sucking on a snorkel, which would act as a funnel of water into your throat, breaking the seal. And lastly, number 6, he doesn't appear to do recovery breaths. I'm not 100% sure of this, as they do cut out shortly after he surfaces, but proper recovery breaths facilitates replenishing your oxygen levels as quickly as possible, as you can still black out after you surface. Recovery breaths can prevent blackouts. And for those 6 reasons, that's why I think my octopus teacher absolutely sucked. In a freediving course, you'll learn to avoid all these mistakes. Check out my YouTube video I did on this subject. The link is in the show notes. And that's it for today's episode. If you are in the market for a new wetsuit, please consider our friends at Waihano Wetsuits, which are so slick and so comfortable. Check out the link in my show notes, and if you purchase from my link, it will help me keep the lights on this podcast. And finally, if you like what you've heard so far, please leave a review on your favorite podcast directory so I can reach more people and help them start their freediving journey. If there are any topics you'd like me to cover, reach out to me at Freedive Nomad on Instagram. Dive safe and never dive alone.
20 years stuck in the office, and now he's traveling the world. Just one breath and diving deep, he's healthier and happier than ever. Freedive Nomad, he's found what he wants to do. A freediving podcast for total beginners like you. Freedive Nomad, the peace into the deep blue. Make the dream come true. You can do this too.